So here's an item analysis that breaks out your first assessment attempt for the module, the deployment automation and support module. And there were 16 questions, and 5 students out of 6 attempted the first round. The average score was a 2.59, which is a bit lower than what we normally see. We usually see about a 3.5. That's a full point lower than what we'd expect. When we look at the statistical analysis that Blackboard performs on how the questions themselves are rated as assessment items, you notice there's a number of them that are poor questions or cannot calculate, but the statistical algorithms that Blackboard use for this calculation for discrimination don't take into account mastery learning. This is a more important index here. We had 2 easy questions, 3 hard questions, and 11 medium questions. As long as you don't have too many easy or too many hard, you're in a good place. I sorted the questions by average score in decreasing amounts. If it was a multiple choice, the average point value for multiple choice was 1/4 of a point. So if you see a 0.25, it means everybody answered correctly, because the total score you could get is a 0.25 and the average score was a 0.25. So here's Blackboard saying, oh, I can't calculate if this is a good question. Well, something's right because everybody got it correct. So that's the piece you have to account for. This true false question was probably an extra credit question. Everyone got that one correct. We'll spend most of our time at the bottom of the scale working our way up with the items that were most difficult, beginning with the troubleshooting errors. The multiple answer question reads, which of the following represents suitable troubleshooting measures to resolve errors when working with graphical and command line interface or CLI deployment and support tools and methods? So when we say graphical and CLI methods, we're talking about everything we've covered this module to deploy and support systems, RSAT, WAC, MMCs, PowerShell, so on and so on and so on. So the question is saying, what are some of the steps you take to resolve these issues if you have errors? One common source of error we identified early in the process was if you don't have a host name and network address association, either in the hosts file or in your DNS service that's running, you have a lot of errors. When you open up Windows Admin Center, if you don't have the correct entries for name and address associations in your hosts file, or you don't even have a host file set up, they often can't see each other or find each other. Second option that was a correct choice had to do with remote management firewall rules. When we were setting up RSAT, we had to set up a whole series of firewall rules using command line or PowerShell statements. And basically many of them started with these 2 initials RM, remote management disk, remote management device management, remote managed services, remote management users and groups, so on and so forth. Any questions so far about what we've covered? We did mention that when you have errors, when it comes to simple support and update routines, basically you could have an update off of the Microsoft Update Center. So you could have an MSU that you downloaded, but when you try to load it, It's for a subscription-based license as opposed to the LTSC version of your Windows license. The ISOs that you use to install your operating systems are either framed for software assurance and subscription license models versus long-term support. I purchased it once and I'm going to run this as long as I can. I'm not going to worry about upgrading. A lot of the updates, if you're going to run something as long as you can without doing a bunch of updates, those are LTSC. This was something that was mentioned in class and in the study guide and in the addendum. Implementing a local security account management workgroup model isn't going to help. If you're in an enterprise environment, you have centralized security account management, you wouldn't want to go back in time and set up a workgroup model, because that would mean it's every system for itself. So usually when you have centralized or domain security account management models in operation, does everybody know what I mean by security account management?
Yeah.
So I'm talking about standalone workgroup accounts versus domain accounts, right? And this last one, add a system name to the existing WAC manage as credentials. If you add a system name to the existing WAC manage as credentials, here's what we're talking about. I'm going to go ahead and start my virtual machine up so you can see this thing running. And then I'm going to open up Windows Admin Center as soon as this thing slides over here a little bit. By the way, I found that I was down to 5 or 6 gigs of disk space on my laptop. And yeah, I only had 5 or 6 gigs left. So I went through there and deleted some videos and then ran some updates and then did disk cleanup and disk defrag. And now I'm back to 40 gigabytes of free space on my hard drive. So you might be experiencing some similar issues on yours unless you have a really large hard drive. If I am running Windows Admin Center, the reference in that question is referring to the screen that you're going to see. There's a column that has it's a column called managed as, manage as. When I select a system and I select manage as, what I'm saying is that I enter this and then I put stdsrv1 / and then the name of my account. And I'm saying that's something that you do to resolve problems when your management tools aren't working. Well, that's kind of a special case. It only works some of the time. And as a general troubleshooting task, doing something like that might help in 1 out of 100 cases, but it's not a general rule of thumb for troubleshooting. It is helpful to be specific with the username. I want you to notice here that it says managing as. When I open up Windows Admin Center, it's running off of my ThinkPad. So it's going to put in ThinkPad1 / owner. So it's entered the machine name for me. But I know that if I enter the owner login and password for ThinkPad on my server, that's not going to work. So one thing I need to do is select manage as, then put another credential in. And if that item on the assessment was true, this wouldn't work. Whoops. Ah. Oh, that sucks. Hold on. Is it telling me whether or not my caps lock key is on? Oh, that's always. Okay. It's off. There we go. Okay, I just had happy fingers. But here you see, in order to connect to this machine, I don't have to put the name of the machine in there under the managing as option. I can just connect at that point. So there are cases where it helps to put the machine name in there, strangely, because it's lost its way. Sometimes that helps when you don't have a hosts file or a DNS service running. But there you have it. Any questions on this item before we move on? Everybody with? Everybody with? Still?
Yeah.
We still got everybody. Almost everybody.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Let's look at the next challenge item on the assessment, taking too long. So you have a case where it's taking too long at a work site for system users to clear updates using Windows Update with a slow internet connection. When we say Windows Update, we're talking about using the update option that you normally know to do in the graphical environment. You just select settings and then go to Windows Update and Security, and this is Windows Update. So it just takes too darn long, right? So you can enable delivery options. So what are the things that you can do to take care of that issue? Enable delivery options to allow local update copies from any system nearby that has them. That's one thing you can do. You basically go into delivery optimization and hello. Now it's going to be stubborn. Everybody still there?
Yeah.
Did I lose you?
Oh yeah, I am here.
Let me see if I can pull that up again. There. Delivery optimization. You can allow downloads from other PCs, just PCs on the local network or PCs on my local network and on the internet. So anything that's nearby, basically. And those are advanced options. You can set bandwidth, upload settings, and so on, if you really want to get granular about it. This is a good option, though. That's one way to resolve a very slow, taking too long scenario. Download the MSU files for updates needed and load these using a USB or a network share. So another trick is to go to the Microsoft Update Center and on one machine find out which updates you have had from the update history. So if I look at update history, where are we? Where's my update history? Oh, there it is, right here. Okay, so you run your updates on one system. When you find out what your updates are in update history, you capture the KB article for it. You go to Microsoft Download Center. No, Update Center. Catalog. I always seem to, for some reason I keep thinking center. It's Update Catalog. I type that in, download that. I get the flavor of that update for the systems I want to load. I put it on a thumb drive and I move those manually. That's much faster than using a terribly slow internet connection, especially if you have a painfully slow internet connection and a half a dozen people. Just get it once and then USB drives are 10 times, 100 times faster depending. Set up a Server 2019 system and configure a WSIS deployment role. That's an ideal case. If you have an extra server, I am in the process of setting up a WSUS server so I can show you. I want to demonstrate what happens when you create a new machine. You have to update 27 updates and you have a WSIS server. I want you to see that live. I should have that by Thursday. So that's going to be pretty cool. What else can you do to allow things to go faster on the internet? Well, promoting each user account to elevated and administrator privileges doesn't help a slow internet connection. That has nothing to do with internet speed. Slipstream the updates into the OS install media and direct each user to reload the operating system. Now, I noticed that a number of students chose this one. Why is this a bad option? Well, we already have a work site. We already have people who are bogged down and can't get their work done, and the internet is too slow. If I went ahead and said, okay, I'm going to reload the operating system and I'm going to build the slipstream, that is going to give them all the updates, but it's not a practical maintenance method, especially if they have newly installed systems. I mean, the scenario is very vague. It doesn't give you additional information. It doesn't say it's taking too long at the work site for system users to clear updates for unsupported older Windows versions. Well, that would be a whole different animal. But it just says users trying to use Windows Update. Windows Update wasn't around on older versions of Windows. So, I mean, think about the time it takes to reload an operating system. And then if you reload it a certain way, you lose all your work, or you overwrite the applications that are already loaded. That's a terribly convoluted way of doing it. You'd use Slipstream in certain scenarios, you don't use it in others. And that's one thing we tried to provide some clarity about with the addendum. I want to ask everyone, did you see the email that I sent about the addendum and the links for the short videos? And did you get a chance to open the addendum and watch the videos and follow along?
Yeah, I saw the email. I watched through a little bit. I didn't watch through the full video, but yeah, I did see that.
Okay. Each of those videos is like what, 10 minutes, 15 minutes long at the most? Many of the answers that have to do with deployment acceleration methods are embedded in those two short videos. And I wanted people to understand, okay, you have client methods, you have server methods, and then you have enterprise methods. And WSUS is surprisingly available in 2 out of 3 of those scenarios. So as long as you have access to another server, you can run WSUS. And if you have a server with some disk space, if it's a capable server, you can add the role to an existing server. It's a very, very efficient use of that machine. All right, moving right along. Graphical tools, GUI tools for a given context. So we ask people to match the GUI tool for the given context where it's used. Well, the Microsoft Management Console is basically used for unsupported and retired systems. The Windows Admin Center is used right now for both client and server operating systems. It is one of the few that actually works for both client and server. MMCs work on clients and servers. Server Manager does not work on client operating systems. What do I mean? Windows 10. A Server Manager will not run. It'll run on a Windows 10 machine, but you can't manage a Windows 10 machine with Server Manager. Why? Because it's a server. The other acronym for Server Manager is RSAT. So when you see Server Manager, that's equivalent to Remote Server Administration Tool. So both of those terms mean the same. If you see RSAT, it means Server Manager. If you see Server Manager, it means RSAT. SCCM, that's only in an enterprise scenario. It's only if you have a huge company or an organization. That's only if you have lots of money. The only way you're going to find that working, the only place that's going to be working, is in very large enterprise systems or environments. Okay. Any questions about which of these graphical tools work for which case?
No question.
So Server Manager is still supported and it's used for older systems, but not retired systems. There's a difference between older supported systems and systems that are so old they came on the ark with Noah and they're past retired, and somebody should have like put them out to pasture and shot them in the head. I mean, that's how old some systems really are. If you're using MMC on really old servers, it's time to gracefully retire those before they crash on you. Anyway, so I wanted to call out the distinction between what we mean by unsupported retired systems and older supported servers. Any questions about this item? How are recent MSU files identified? How are most MSU files needed to automate OS deployment and support identified in the most efficient manner? Well, we modeled this in class. You view the update history of a system that was recently installed and configured. That's the easiest way to pull those, right? If you go to the Microsoft, update catalog, and you just do a search on update, oh my gosh, you get way too much. I mean, so if you say server 2019 and let's say x64, right? x64 based. Okay, I have 20 pages, 497 items. Which ones count for which version of server? Well, unfortunately, it doesn't always specify whether it's the LTSC version or the other. So that's a terrible way to do it. Even though this is a useful resource and we want you to know about it, it's not the best way to look up which systems need what. Let's do the same thing with Windows 10. I'll search for Windows 10. See if there's more than 20 pages for Windows 10 updates. Oh yeah, 40 pages. There's 1,000 updates, 40 pages of updates for Windows 10. Yeah, that's not something I'd want to pick through. Oh, but here you do see LTSB at least. That's encouraging. I wonder if we could put LTSB in there for server. Now, see, that sucks. So it'll tell you which long-term support updates are available for Windows 10, but not for your most important machines, not for your servers. Okay. Well, anyway, getting back to this. If you check for the required updates using Windows Update, you get all sorts of updates that may or may not apply. Or if everything's been updated, you won't get anything. So if you check for updates with Windows Updates and it's been updated, it won't render a list of anything. Reference the About option after the system setting. That only tells you the version of the operating system. Issue the PowerShell command, get update versions. I made that up. That's a totally made up PowerShell command. There is no get update versions PowerShell command. I pulled that one out of my backside. Just made it up. One thing you could always do in an assessment is do this. If you were in the middle of an assessment and you had your machine running, right? I'm going to go ahead and issue a PowerShell prompt, right? So it was get update version. Was it get update versions, plural? Yeah, versions. Using run as administrator. It's not recognized as the name of a commandlet function or script file. It doesn't even know what that is. So you can always check to see if some of the command options I'm giving for an assessment. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with using your own system as a check if you want to narrow down two choices on an assessment. I don't consider it cheating. Okay.
Sometimes, Dr. Kentop, I just think like if you go to look for something, go on your system, I find it could take up time. So I just skip it.
I understand.
From
Yeah,
reality, yeah.
usually it is a better strategy to study quite a bit, and then if you have to in a pinch, you can only look up, you know, an item or two. Here's one that caused issues. It was a multiple answer. Multiple answer questions are worth a half a point. So most of the class got most of the answers on this wrong. Let's take a look. It says dependencies required. A tech professional recommends implementing centralized management methods. When we say centralized management methods, we're talking about the big ones. SCCM or SolarWinds for a mid-sized organization that is growing fast. When asked about other requirements, the consultant states the change will require no additional resources. Yeah, that's a lie. That's because consultants want you to commit and get started, and then they tell you about the extra expenses after you start the work. And that's how some unethical consultants do. I hope nobody here does that. Like run a business and you tell people, oh, it's going to cost this much, and then after the work gets started and everybody's in trouble, then you say, oh, no, it's going to be an extra. In any case, you know better. You know there's extra requirements. Select the infrastructure elements below that would also be required for this recommended implementation. So it is a recommended implementation. It is something you want to do for mid-sized and larger organizations. Tell people to invest so that you get to go home at a decent hour and people have smooth, fast, hot, secure, always running machines, right? Can't blame the technology. You need an enterprise SAM. You need an Active Directory AD environment, AD domain. You need DNS, you need WDS, and you need WSUS servers. If you don't have those things in place and you don't have an enterprise domain, you don't have what you need to run SCCM effectively. It says sysprep loaded on every system. Well, if you run sysprep and load it on every system, you basically have systems that end up rebooting like they've been turned on for the first time, and then users have to set it up each time. That's not a good thing, right? Mandatory delivery optimizations via GPO. The only way you have this option as a possibility is if you have the domain in place in the on the first hand, right? So this is something that you would do to enhance the domain. And there's a manual method that you can use without SCCM that you could implement. But the question doesn't ask, what do you do in place of SCCM? You have a domain, you don't want to buy SCCM, you don't want to buy SolarWinds. What else can you do? This is a good option for that case. Okay? So on the assessment retake, I may change it up and say, okay, you have a large mid-sized organization and it's growing fast, but they don't have the money for SCCM or SolarWinds. What else can they do? Well, they would still do the domain, they would still do these, and they could do this. And that would help. Okay, any questions about this item?
None so far.
Okay. All right. True, false. Sysprep without WDS. It is practical and efficient to use Sysprep to capture a whole disk system image, even for individual clients when no WDS server is available. In the addendum, if you're going to do Sysprep, you have to have WDS. If you're going to do Sysprep, you have to have a way of capturing the whole disk image, the whole system image, which is vastly larger than, so it's not practical and it's not efficient to use Sysprep on systems where there's no point in getting a whole system image if you can't roll it out and mass produce it with the WDS server. You could, and it would be a manual process, and you could break down the whole system image into 15 separate DVD disks. And then you could stand by for 90 minutes and feed each of the 15 DVD disks into the disk drive when prompted, just to load the image before you could even start with the install. It's neither practical nor efficient. Sysprep is only good, and this only produces the maximum benefit. Now, why do we even cover Sysprep? Because if you get Sysprep going and you get WDS going, even if you don't have a domain environment, you're going to load you're going to have system recovery times that are 1,000 times faster, literally 1,000 times faster. I was comparing notes with a tech professional who worked in a hospital that said they had a malware attack and it took them a day, but they got back. I said, yeah, in the last hospital I was in, we had a malware attack. It took us 45 minutes to recover an entire department. We had Sysprep and the WDS server. 45 minutes to recover an entire department wiped out by, now think about it. That's not terribly, I mean, the stuff we just went over in class, you set this up in a workplace environment. That's the kind of stuff you can do. And then tell them you got a job offer to work somewhere else and you need to improve your salary for like 10 grand more a year. That's what you do. Anyway, any questions on this item?
No.
Okay. Seeing is believing. We're going to set up WSUS and let you see it for yourself. God willing, sometime by the end of the semester, we might even have WDS and Sysprep going on some new machines we have running in the Carolinas. I'm accessing from here. All right, so we're going to keep going until we get up to these items. When we get to these last two items, we won't worry about those. No such system. A tech professional attempts to connect to a workgroup system to easily manage it and receives an error that no such system exists. Cannot be found. What should the tech do to ensure the system can be found to resolve the error? Well, this gets back to Create an entry in the hosts file to associate the system name with its IP network address, right? So you want to easily manage it. It says no system found, cannot be found. You got to do the host file. If you do this from a command prompt, starting the run as administrator and do ipconfig register DNS, you likely don't have DNS running in a workgroup environment. If you're running in a workgroup environment, you only have a few users and you just want to be able to help each person on their machine. You have 3 or 4 machines, but you may not have a DNS server for that size environment. This is the same answer. The only difference is from the command prompt. Here's a clue I want to share with you. A lot of times my bogus answers are variations of the same bogus answer. You can register DNS using PowerShell, but you don't use an ipconfig command to do it. The ipconfig command is a command you use from the command prompt, and in PowerShell, it's a different command, but you can register DNS in PowerShell. So that's one way to identify a bogus question. Any questions or comments on this item?
No.
Expected of text. You need to add an available feature with maximum efficiency. Choose the quickest and easiest method to use a competent tech would be expected to complete the task. Yeah, choose the quickest and easiest method to use a competent tech would be expected to complete this task. All right. Use the Windows PowerShell add Windows feature command. We've been playing around a lot with setting up graphical tools, and if you have a lot of machines to manage, having a graphical tool is a tremendous advantage. It's just kind of hard to get a sense for that until you're in a place like that. But then we took an assignment that we walked through, and how long did it take to add the telnet client and to take out the telnet client and add it back again? It's ridiculously easy, right? It's just that quick. So a competent tech would be expected to know the quick and easy command line option. All right, here is a taking too long scenario B. So the other taking too long scenario was A. This is taking too long scenario B. It is taking too long at a work site for the tech staff to replace or overhaul systems when one crashes. Select the components or methods that would greatly reduce by 1,000 times the time it takes to load a new system at a reasonable cost. That's the whole system images installed with WDS and local update delivery with WSUS. I noticed nobody chose this, but we're talking about replacing and overhauling an entire system, not just reloading the operating system, right? So whole system images installed with WDS and WSUS. These two are the dynamic duo. That's what makes 1,000 times faster possible. It's kind of like you can't have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich without the jelly. These two are always paired together, right? But this one is the first one to put in place. If you can get this one in place, it helps a lot. Should I go back and look at the other answer choices on that one? Let's see. Previous downloads of MSU files via USB. That would help expedite update time, but that wouldn't be ideal rebuilding an entire system overhauls, right? wouldn't be as practical. Does everybody understand the difference there?
Yes.
Okay, so if I'm just running updates and I want to make the updates go faster, yeah, do MSU files on a shared directory or on a thumb drive. Sure. What if I'm doing system overhauls? Well, if you have to do a lot of those, there's an awful lot of MSU files every time you rebuild a system. Delivery options to allow local copies of updates. Yeah, that helps with update speed, but we're not talking about update speed. We're talking about replace or overhaul systems. It's a different support task altogether. Pushing updates via Microsoft SCCM. Well, SCCM would improve overhaul efficiency, but not by 1,000 times. SCCM helps you centrally control the overhaul of systems, but the 1,000 factor improvement in efficiency comes from these two, not from this. This lets one person manage 50,000 machines. These two allow anyone to install a whole new system after it crashes 1,000 times faster. I hope that helps. So let's say you want to change the time zone. Oh, there was a change in the daylight savings time. You can use SCCM to push a time zone change or something like, you know, that kind of thing. Which command? Freestanding server activation. So you have an older version of Server 2019 Media to use on a data center Hyper-V host. And you need to activate the free Server 2019 standard licenses included with the data center Hyper-V platform. What is the specific command you use to accomplish this task? Well, it's this command, slmgr ipk, but you have to look up the key. Does everyone know where we look up those keys specifically?
I actually forgot.
Yeah, it's on the link. It's Microsoft.
So here's your study guide, right? See the please click here for more details. There are your keys. But there was a separate reference that we posted. We actually sent to you, I think. It's this one. I think this is on the, does this look familiar? I thought I put this out there or sent this to you by email.
No, I haven't gotten it. So
I didn't get it either.
Okay. All right. Well, all I did was copy and paste what's on this website. So you can either click on it in the study guide or use this reference. I'll go ahead and I'll check to make sure that's out there. Yeah. So once again, it's got to be one of these two choices that's correct. I have to find which one matches the key. If I go to my reference, where's my reference? And I look at this. This is used for the latest version of 2019, but these are earlier versions of 2019, including 1809. The following AVMA keys can be used for Windows Server. It's the standard edition. Starts with Tango November and ends with 7-4. So Tango November and 7-4. That's an incorrect command. I just made that up. Any questions?
Oh, sir.
Okay, we're almost there. Multiple choice, internet too slow. And this time slow is spelled in all caps. The internet service is very slow. So much so that updates interfere with prompt installation of critical updates that fix serious security exposures. You need to set up a new version of OS on, so here's the key. You're not worried about updates. You're setting up a new version of the operating system. You're installing the operating system, a new version of the operating system on many, many systems without installing applications. If I were installing applications, I'd be interested in a whole system image, but because I'm only installing the operating system, I am interested in a slipstream update of a media image, not a whole system image. Okay?
Yeah.
If the scenario says, and I have to have all these applications installed automatically, I have to have these applications preloaded, then I would do this. What type of install image do you want? In that case, I'd use the whole system image. Okay. So just remember, if you're doing it manually and you're doing one-offs, you're usually using an operating system media image with slipstream updates, right?
Yeah.
If you're using an automated process and you're using a whole system image, you're using WDS. And in order to do that, you got to use sysprep. So the moment you hear sysprep, you're going to think, okay, that's a whole system image. That's a huge image that has software preloaded into the image. And when I take a snapshot of that whole system, if I stamp that out 100 times, now I have 100 systems running the same IP address with the same name on the same network. Crash, boom, right? So you run sysprep to prevent that from happening. Install media methods. One method to get install media that includes updates is to reload or clean slate. That includes updates to reload or clean slate the current system is to, now see that, everybody see how this is italicized?
Yeah.
So if I need media to reload the operating system and I want to include all the updates, and I'm just rebuilding my current system, create a recovery disk. If you use Microsoft Backup, well, that's not going to reload your system in a way that it recovers your system. What am I saying? If you use Microsoft Backup, whatever you had in place on that system, so if your system is barfed and it's slow and it's messed up, and you get a backup of that slow, barfed, messed up system, when you restore the Microsoft Backup, you're going to get a slow, barfed up system. It's not going to give you a clean system. It's not a clean slate. It's going to give you whatever you had before you started the process. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
Yeah, it does.
okay. So here's the other option, load a new ISO upon reboot. Oh, that's not a good choice. That's a nonsense answer. Load a network Pixie install. Well, if you load a network Pixie install, you're not working with the current system. You're I mean, let me think about that answer. You want install media that includes the updates. The goal of this question is to lay your hands on install media that include updates. If you load a Network Pixie install, it may or may not include updates. So a whole system image may or may not include updates, but a recovery disk always does. I don't know if that makes sense either.
Yeah, it does. I get it.
Okay, two more. Merging recent MSU files into OS install media slipstream is an advantage because it eliminates slow internet updates that delay new OS installation and setup. Yes, that's the primary reason. When you install, if I use this media right now, and let's just do this. This media was actually created in fall of, everybody see the date on this? What's the date on this image?
September 6, 2019.
Exactly. The 1809 version of Microsoft Server 2019 was released on the 6th of September 2019. There's an awful lot of updates that have been released since then. So whenever you take your install media, if you don't slipstream the updates, you have to make up for almost, what is it, 18 months ago? You have to make up for 18 months of updates. The other choice that a student selected was eliminates the requirement to activate the OS license after install and setup. There is no update option that does that for anyone. That's just a bogus answer. It sounded good, so I put it in there. But it's not accurate. Last item. Order the following steps or tasks that must be performed to correctly slipstream updates into a disk image used to install an operating system. Step number 1. Use PowerShell to mount the latest ISO install media. So I'm going to, if I have this media, if I have this media here, it's a file. If I want to use what's inside the file, I have to treat it like it's a plastic DVD disc. If I don't treat it like it's a digital version of a plastic DVD disc, I can't get inside this. Now, in Windows, on this screen, in File Explorer, when I double click this, I'm mounting it. Or I could just right click it and mount it. Either way, that's what opens it. If I don't mount the disk, I can't get inside it. Why would you issue a PowerShell command? Well, in here, I don't have a slick GUI to double click the ISO. I can't right click anything with a mouse and select the mount option. I don't have a GUI. So I have to use PowerShell. Okay. Number 2, make a temporary image and offline directories and copy the ISO contents. So the second step is I've mounted the disk so I can get at it. Now I'm going to take the image out of that mounted disk, and I'm going to create a temporary image directory and a temporary offline directory. And then I'm going to copy the ISO contents. That's the second step. Third step, I'm going to get the Windows install media details using a PowerShell command and mount. So I'm going to get the install details and mount it using DISM. So in this case, I'm mounting the ISO. In this case, I'm mounting the WIM file. It's another install file. Fourth step, I'm going to add the update packages to the offline directory created in DISM. So here I create the offline directory to catch the updates, then I put the updates in the offline folder, and the offline folder is where where those are stored. Then I'm going to unmount and commit the changes to the offline folder and dismount the ISO in PowerShell. So I unmount using DISM, I dismount using PowerShell. Does everybody see the word there? See how that's different? When I'm using a DOS command, I unmount. When I'm using a PowerShell command, I dismount. It means the same thing, it's just a different way of saying it. The dismount command will not work in the command prompt. The unmount command from the command prompt will not work in PowerShell. You have to keep those two separate. Last thing I'm going to do is take out the trash. I'm going to delete the temporary image files, remove the image, offline directories. Any questions?
No.
This concludes our item analysis. What can you expect between now and our next class? Well, it's going to be quite interesting. What we're going to do between now and our next class is this. I'm going to post retake assessments in each module. In the bottom of module 1, you'll see the retake option 1.7. So you can retake the module 1 assessment. Then you're going to retake the module 2 assessment. Why do you want to retake the assessment? Well, after you've reconciled your mistakes, you want to get as high a score as you can while you have access to reference materials online, right? And that's because on Thursday morning, you have an exam to take. On Thursday morning, you will have a proctored exam for 1 hour where you take assessment items from module 1 and module 2. And if you do the retakes, you're getting a preview of those items, okay? So the retake items, the assessment retake items are a preview of the exam items. They're not always identical, quite often they are. So I'm going to send you a couple of emails saying, hey, you have until Thursday morning to do the retakes. Why can't we just give you until the end of next class to do the retakes and the exam? Well, we're a little behind. We have to make sure we get started on the next module. And I want to demonstrate something to you. I want to use Thursday as a demo day on the next module, okay? And if you retake and then while it's still fresh, you take the exam, you'll do much better, okay? Does everybody understand we're not taking one retake, we're taking 2 retakes. So later today and tomorrow, I'm putting out a retake assessment for module 1 and module 2. That's going to help you prepare for the exam. Thursday morning, I'm going to post a 1-hour exam. It has to be finished by the time we start class on Thursday. Any questions?
You said it's Thursday morning, it will be posted. And it has to be finished before class because I have a lab during that morning. I don't know if I'll be able to finish it before if it's posted in the morning.
Well, it's a 60-minute exam. How late does your lab run?
I have a lab from 9 to 11, and then I have a class from 11 to 12. So I could probably try to get it in from 12 to 1 because we start class at 2, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
try it then. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing your schedule. I didn't realize it was that tight for you.
Yeah, it's busy for me, but it's fine.
Yeah. The trick is to get the retakes done. So go over your reconciliations and just review the study guides real quick, and then retake the module 1 and module 2 assessments, the next version. See what happens. Now, what am I going to do? We had an item assessment that we did with each of these assessments. I explained to you how this works, right? Did we ever do an item analysis for 1.5? I thought we went over the questions for the first assessment. I'm pretty sure we did.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So basically we go over I'll go back and look. If it turns out that I did not record or post an item analysis for module 1, I'll go ahead and work this up. But I'm pretty sure we did. Last time we had an assessment. Let me look. Yeah. Yeah, on the 18th of February, we went over it. There's a recording of it out on Blackboard. So, okay. Well, unless there are other questions, that's all we had for today. I hope everyone has a good day. Good luck on your retakes and your exam. And we'll see you in class on Thursday. Does anyone want to stick around to share a screen for help with any of the assignments or the assessment? I mean, or the solution? I can stay put if somebody would like to go over some of the stuff for the assignments or the solution.